Souq Enlightenment. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing H. Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Dahosa Osamanze.
It's a national orientation agency. It's, as far as I'm concerned, very idle and unprofessional.
If government says that subsidy is not in oil and government is not supposed to be paying subsidy in oil,
energy or whatever kind of off-grid solution we will be looking at.
Today we are conducting mining today. Solid minerals, as an example, is, in no disrespect to anybody, is abysmal. We definitely need improvements in those areas. Of course, there are infrastructural needs.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Tour, and he had to visit 4 African countries. It was a turn up Nigeria on Wednesday where he had meetings with the president and some prominent Nigerians talking about some of the promises or commitments he made to Nigeria. Africa remains a strategic partner when it comes to the business relations that exist between the U.S. and this continent. Why is Africa of interest to the United States? These are things we're going to look at. And then looking at this visit, what will be the impact of this visit, the economic impact, and some of the promises, the commitment the United States made to Nigeria. Blessing, before we bring in our guests, there are several people in some quarters who, for every action, there are always different interpretations to it. The first reaction about this visit was that why will the U.S. Secretary of State will visit Nigeria, embark on a visit to 4 countries called the African Tour. Why will he embark on this kind of tour at a sensitive time like this? Some brought about political connection to it as regards the timing. But for me, if you look at the kind of volume of businesses that exists between U.S. and Africa, it's an age-long relationship, the kind of bilateral relationship that exists between them. Africa remains a strategic partner. In fact, especially Nigeria will remain one of the most significant trade partners. In fact, when he visited Nigeria, he described Nigeria as one of the most innovative countries in the world, whereby the essence of the visit is to ensure that they strengthen the relationship between U.S. and Africa. It's also an offshoot of the summit that happened in 2022, in December 22, the U.S.-African Summit, where it's also important for the United States to extend the hands of fellowship to some of its strategic partners. I wasn't surprised that when he visited Nigeria, he made some commitments. He said that the American entrepreneurs are interested in investing in Nigeria, especially in the tech sector. It has been of interest to them. Even though he highlighted some challenges, the issue of corruption, the issue of repatriation of funds, which we know has been a critical issue, where foreign companies who are in Nigeria have not been able to repatriate some of their funds, and I'm quite sure the CBN is handling that. But in spite of these challenges, he said that the U.S. is also ready to provide some support when it comes to the issue of security. And that was why he pledged the $45 million, security fund to assist Nigeria and some of the West African countries. He also raised concerns about the coup that you have in Mali, Burkina Faso, and what the West African nations need to do to ensure that democracy is restored, and also showed the interest of the United States in offering the necessary diplomatic support to ensure that military rule doesn't become the order of the day in those countries. So for you, what was the high point for you?
Well, picking 4 countries out of in Africa to visit them, there's no high point for me basically, but the fact that the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken chooses to visit 4 countries in Africa. Now, it's strategic, and I guess it's for different reasons. Now, the priorities, like he has mentioned, security, health, and economic development, these are very key to development of a region. Now, you understand that Nigeria and so many other African countries have been battling with security challenges. So the U.S. coming into partnership with African countries, which they've tried before and which they've made arrangements to have more concrete relationships before during the leadership summit that was held before in 2020. And then Blinken also recalled that there were some setbacks, so they couldn't pursue with some of the things that were discussed. But this time around, coming to talk about security, I think it's much needed right now, offering funds and all, but the part of the U.S. being interested in investing in the tech sector, for me, I'd say that's a high point of it all. That's the high point for me, because tech is the way, is where the world is going right now. And so if they're investing and they're picking out tech, it's a good one, because they are among the front runners when it comes to that sector. So it's going to be a good one. But for the security aspect, I don't think that giving of funds is enough. It should be more of intel than funds, because I don't think funds is actually the problem. Intelligence gathering and some expertise that the U.S. have in dealing with insecurity should also be extended to Nigeria. Remember a time when the Boko Haram insurgency was starting, and it was getting to a point where almost every time you hear, oh, bomb blast here, kidnapper, and Nigerians were asking that the federal government should seek help from the U.S. And at one point, it seemed like, oh, some troops of the, some UN troops actually came in. So it's not just funds. Give them money to handle the security issues. What role will they play in providing support? If it's intelligence they're going to provide, if it's ammunition, whatever it is in that regard. But it's quite appreciated, and I like the fact that, yes, when we talked about this some days ago, some political undertone were around it, yes, but it's a win for Africa in any way. Whether there are political undertones or not, there are wins for Africa. And I think that the African countries that he's visiting, that the U.S. wants to solidify bilateral relationships with, should position themselves well and dialogue well. Don't dialogue from the point of disadvantage to say, okay, whatever it is they are offering, we're ready to take. It should be negotiation from the point of advantage.
For me, the timing doesn't negate the necessity of the motive, yes, or the necessity of the relationship or the partnership. For those who are reading political connection, well, they might have their say. But for me, I think the business relations, have more impact than the political connection, because if it outweighs the merit outweighs the demerit. And if you look at the kind of commitment in the area of health, the United States has committed about $8.5 billion in the last 5 years when it comes to the prevention of HIV, tuberculosis, and to enhance the war against HIV in Nigeria and in Africa. So if a particular country is making that kind of commitment over the years, then you know that it's not a joke, it's not a tea party. And for them to have been able to send their representative to these African countries to show the level of interest and the keen interest they have in facilitating this kind of partnership. And so for us as a nation, I think what we need to do, even if we are being given funds, that's not a bad idea. In fact, some of our challenges, even if you're being given funds, ammunitions in terms of in tackling the issue of security, I don't think that's the challenge. It is what we'll do with it, which is quite important. And in recent times, our president has shown a form of sincerity to show that when it comes to the issue of security, he's ready to tackle it headlong. And due to his recent visits to some of these countries, to cement this kind of relationship with some of these countries and to show the sincerity of governance, which is part of what strengthening investors' confidence. We look at the performance of our stock market. We talked about it yesterday. It's a result of the activities of the federal government in recent time and some of the commitments they've made. And so with this kind of visit, it's also strategic. It's like a PR for Nigeria to tell the world that there's something significant about Nigeria. And for those who feel visiting Nigeria is like going to the den of a lion, now they can erase their mind if the US...
He's going to take word back to the US of his visit to Nigeria and what he's saying, what he thinks. So that's to a good extent will boost investor confidence. If you have your Secretary of State telling you about the country you want to invest in, then that's some level of assurance.
That's great. All right, let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation as regards the partnership between the US and Africa. Stay with us.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history. Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked the CBN, the stock exchange, and the loads of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also a home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the outer marina through Akpombo early into the Adeniji Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night.